This is the video for 5.1 and we are talking about slope and rate of change. Most of this should be review. You should have learned about slope last year. But let's talk about what exactly is a rate of change. A rate of change shows the relationship between two changing quantities. So a rate of change is the change in the dependent variable over the change in the independent variable. That triangle symbol is the Greek letter delta, and it means change. So a rate of change is a slope. The slope is the ratio of the vertical change, which we call the rise, to the horizontal change, which we call the run. So your slope is the vertical change over the horizontal change. So let's go to example number 1, finding slope using a graph. So the first thing I want you to do is pause the video and go ahead and graph the points 1, 1 and -2, -1. And then connect those 2 points with a line and do the same thing for the next example, -3, 2 and 2, -2. So now what we want to do is we want to find the slope. So remember what I said, your slope is your rise over your run. And so what I have to do is I have to figure out how many units did I rise and how many units did I run. So I want to go from my left point to my right point, and I want to rise and I want to run. So how many units did I rise? 1, 2. And how many units did I run? 1, 2, 3. And so my slope is 2 over 3. As y went up by 2, x went up by 3. It's a ratio of my change in y, how much did my y change, and how much did my x change in order to get from one point to the next. Okay, so let's look at the next example. Again, I want to move from my left point to my right point, and I want to rise, and then I want to run. And so here I have a negative rise and a positive run. And so how many units did I go down? 1, 2, 3, 4. And how many units did I go over to the right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so my slope is -4 over 5. When y went down by 4, x went up by 5. I rose down and down 4 and to the right 5. So my slope is -4 over 5. So go ahead and hit pause and work out the 2 on your own. Here's the answer for the first one. I like using graph paper. I don't like using those little graphs that I put on your notes. So if you want to do this on graph paper and just cut it and paste it to your notes or stick it in your notebook, that's fine. So the first one is 2 over 5. And then the next one, notice I got -2 over 6, but I have to reduce that. And so the slope is -1 over 3. And so remember, slope works for any 2 points on that line. And so in order to go from this left point to this right point, I have to go down 2 over 6. But I could also get to another point on that line by going down 1 over 3. And so when you're communicating slope, you always want to reduce. So you would say the slope is -1 over 3. Okay, now we're going to find slope using points. And so we said that slope is your change in y over your change in x. Well, what is that? That's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And so this is how I want you to do this. I want you to be super careful because it's very, very easy to make math errors in these problems. So what I want you to do is I always want you to start by writing your formula so you can see it. You also have to memorize it. So if you write it over and over and over again, you'll start memorizing it. And then I want you to go through and I want you to label your points. We're going to call these points x1, y1, and then we're going to call these points x2, y2. And so now all I need to do is fill it into the formula because I'm trying to figure out how much did y change and how much did x change. And then I want to set that up as a ratio. Now you may be able to look at it and figure it out, but please don't. Please do not try to do this in your head. Please write it all out step by step to avoid errors. So negative 2 minus 0 over 3 minus negative 1. On this one, do the keep, change, change. Keep, change, change. What I'm doing is I'm saying 3 plus 1, which is 4. And then I want to reduce. So please write it out, label your points, and do the keep, change, change so you don't get messed up when you have that subtracting of a negative. So go ahead and hit pause and work out the on your own problem. And the answer is negative 4 over 3. So the slope is negative 4 over 3. Okay, so example number 3, finding slope of vertical and horizontal lines. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to graph negative 3, 2, and 2, 2. And then on the next example, it says negative 2, 1, and negative 2, negative 2. Go ahead and graph both of those, graph all of those points and draw those two lines on those next two examples there. And once you do that, let's look at the top one first. What do you get? You get a horizontal line. The slope of any horizontal line is always 0. Well, let's talk about why. Let's think about it. We said that slope is change in y over change in x. So let's look at my points. There's no change in y. Let's think about what the equation of this line is. The equation of this line is y equals 2. Well, what does that mean? It means for all values of x, y equals 2. There's no change in my y value. Let me prove it to you mathematically. When I do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, you do have to memorize this formula. There are a lot of formulas you do have to memorize in chapter 5 here, and so start making note cards right now. This is going to be your first one, and you're going to call this slope. Slope is abbreviated with an M. And that is your formula for slope. Make a note card and start going over these because there are a lot of formulas you do need to memorize. But if you look at this, you can see mathematically, what do I get when I solve for my slope? I get 0 over 5. 0 divided by anything is 0. There's no change in y. Now let's look at this one. What do we get once we graph these points? We get a vertical line. The slope of any vertical line is undefined. Why? Well, again, let's look at it. What do we have? Change in y over change in x. There's no change in x. What is the equation of this line? The equation of this line is x equals -2. Well, what does that mean? It means for all values of y, x is -2. So again, let me prove it to you mathematically. Look what I get when I solve for my slope. You can't divide anything by 0. If you were to type that into your calculator, you would get error. You cannot divide anything by 0. And so this is not a function, and this is an undefined slope. Okay, so go ahead and hit pause and work out the on your own. So my first one is undefined. It's a vertical line. There's no change in x. And the next one is a horizontal line. The slope is 0. There's no change in y. So go ahead and do your homework and email me if you have any questions.